I think you had a turning point then,
Yeah.
when obviously you started getting busier, or and
Yeah,
things started getting a little bit more intense.
Yeah, a lot of the guys I've worked with are dead now. They've been Irish. They've, 3 of the guys I worked with have been shot dead on the door, drugs, all of those kind of things. I had myself particularly. I had two quite serious incidences. I was attacked by 5 guys in a club in Essex, and it was a case of I was brought up by old school doormen, like not the doormen of today. We're talking about heavyweight boxing champions, people from East End, proper East End. I don't want to mention too many names because obviously,
No.
yeah, I was brought up by people who I was groomed as a proper doorman. And my one of my mentors was a British heavyweight champion. He's dead now. There's a guy called Ronnie Redruff, and he always used to say to me, "It's better if it really comes on top. It's better to be carried by. So it's better to be tried by 12 than carried by 6." And I remember being surrounded by these 5 guys, and effectively they were going to kill me. They were going to jump all over my head. So I knew I had to hurt 2. I hurt 2 of them quite badly. It was self-defence. Unfortunately, the police arrested me on grievous bodily harm and grievous bodily harm with intent. Now the intent charge carries a minimum of 5 years if convicted. I had to wait 1.5 years to go to Crown Court, and all I could hear was the people who brought me up in children's homes saying to me, "You're a low-life Irish scumbag. You're the only place you're going to end up in is prison." So this was this self-fulfilling prophecy becoming true, you see. I could hear their voices in my head saying, and so on one hand, here I am training celebrities and being a successful personal trainer. On the other hand, I'm looking at a prison sentence and I'm dealing with the lowest form of life. So it was a real...
You were doing both things at the same time.
At the same time, yeah. It was almost like
double life.
Double life, yeah. It was almost like a double life. And
how old were you then?
I was then in my early 30s by then. And it was one of the most frightening things that ever happened to me, standing in front of a jury coming in, waiting for the guilty or not guilty after a week in Crown Court. Your legs go to jelly and you're thinking, and they say a smiling jury never convicts. And my jury came in smiling, but there was an 80% chance of my conviction because I'd broken one guy's jaw and I took the other guy's teeth out of his head. I had to do that. I had to show extreme violence because they were prepared to jump on my head, which they were trying to do anyway. And it was 5 against 1. The judge summed up, and in the judge summing up, he said, if this was a normal man who was in front of me, there's no way in a million years he'd be standing in on these charges because he was attacked by 5 men. So he's already told the jury that I'd acted in self-defence. The problem was, had I used excessive force? And the jury actually came back and said, self-defence, reasonable force. And my legs just went from underneath me. I was so stressed. I mean, you're looking at my life would never have been the same if I'd have gone to prison. I could never have done anything.
You had a family?
At the time, I didn't. No. At the time, I didn't. But I wouldn't have a family now. I've got two young boys now. I would never have a family now if I'd have gone to prison. I wouldn't have had the career I've got now, and I certainly wouldn't have been as successful as I am right now. So, that was another pivotal turning point in my life because, if the jury would have convicted me, my life would never have been. I would have gone the other way without a doubt.
So that's fascinating. Was obviously, as you said, you had a kind of a double life whereby you were doing what you were doing, and then on the other half, you were working with celebrities and doing DVDs and travelling the world and working. Explain me that part of
Well, the
your
problem
life.
was that at the time, although it looked very successful what I was doing, it wasn't paying much money. And I was somebody who was ambitious, and I was somebody who wanted to buy my own property. I wanted my own house. I wanted some security. I'm a kid who literally had left care with a suitcase with a couple of T-shirts in it and a pair of shorts and basically nothing. I owned nothing. I left the care system with the clothes on my back. And that's a massive. From the age of 4 or 5 years old, I knew I was alone in the world. And you're massively insecure about that. There was no support system for me whatsoever. And if you realise that from a baby, almost a baby, you are on your own. There is nobody got your back in this world. That's a sobering thought from such a young age, and that changes you as a child. It makes you very angry.
Makes you very hard.
Yeah, and so it also made me ambitious. I was going to own my own house. And I bought my own house.
But I suppose that's the good thing about you, Paul. That at that time, even if you were making money and you had that side of your life, you also were looking at what was positive and what ideally you wanted to be. You were already a personal trainer.
Yeah.
You studied. You learned how to read. Now, tell me about that side. How did you get? Okay, you became a personal trainer, but how did that take you then to producing DVDs and?
Well, I was always someone. One of my. It's funny. They say your strengths are your weaknesses, don't they? I mean, I'm very good with people. Always have been. I knew that was my strength. I love people, and I knew that I was good with people. So I wanted to be in a people business, and I was obsessed about fitness, and because fitness has actually kept me sane, because when you've got lots of mental issues, obviously if you can physically fit and physically strong, that can help you mentally as well. So I was one of those people where I was just so determined to do well for myself that I actually was too intense. I was one of those people that was far too intense. Everything was about moving on and moving on. And I always had this thing that all I need to do is get through this bit and I'm going to be okay. I always had this eternal optimism, which God knows where that came from with my background. I should have been, a very pessimistic person. But I've always felt that, rightly or wrongly, that I was someone special and I was meant for better things. God knows why, because most people I grew up with would be exactly the opposite.
Okay, so you went through that part of life where you had that double life.
Yeah.
And you became a personal trainer. And then you started obviously working with celebrities and stuff. I'm interested in...
How did I make that bridge?
Yeah. How did you make that bridge, and how did you take it from becoming a personal trainer to end up doing all sorts of things?
Okay, so some of it's luck, some of it's judgment, like most things in life. Like I said, I was the first personal trainer in City London back in '88. Now, what happened there was, when I first passed my first gym instructor qualification, I applied to the Barbican in the city, and so did 200 other people. And God knows why, they gave me the job. Gym, free weights manager, straight in, bang. But I could barely read or write at the time, and they actually wanted me to run the gym, and I literally was struggling with the paperwork. So after having a chat with the management, which was an American company at the time that owned that, they said, right, obviously your strengths are on the gym floor. The start of it was that I was approached by Pickwick Pictures, who said, because of my boxing background, they wanted to make the video, The Body, with Elmer Thurston, and they basically said, would you come and fly out and help us make the pilot, and would you be interested in that? And that just seemed to platform me. Once I'd done that, and it done well, it's still one of the best-selling videos out on the market now, 20 years later. I became sought after by corporate people, by people who wanted me to train them, and effectively I trained Christopher Reeves. When I was in the city, I was training quite a lot of well-known people. And I think half the battle was if you can train someone, you can give them a good workout, and you're likeable, you're effectively you're gonna be popular. I was credited with being the guy who brought the boxing type workout to this country, because I worked in the States for quite a few years, and I was bringing back techniques from America to London that people in London hadn't seen. And I started the box aerobics because I had a boxing background and a fitness background. I set up my own company, Box Aerobics, and I was running courses, training trainers, and effectively I was the only trainer in London that was demanding 50% of the door of all the classes he did. They weren't paying me a wage. I'd started a business where I was taking percentages, and because I was in such demand, I was able to make those demands on these clubs. I just seemed to go from strength to strength in the actual fitness industry.